talk to bands, you could find out what they were doing, you could get insights, often that they didn't recognise were newsworthy, and you could say, hey, just tell me that again, you know. A classic example of that would be sitting and talking to a band that had just been signed by, we had a deal to do publicity for a label called Trident, and one of the artists they had was a 4-piece kind of slightly glammy, slightly rocky, slightly poppy band called Queen. And we all went off down to a girls' grammar school in Basingstoke to see them play a sixth form dance, and you know what we saw was the embryonic Queen with all the pomp and the strut that they delivered in years to come, but then playing at a much lower level. And you know, I had the job of talking to bands and trying to sort of get biographies written down, and you know, Brian May was as enthusiastic as he still is about astronomy and his studies there, and about the guitar that he'd made and that he bought in when we did the interview, the famous guitar made from the fireplace with his dad. And you know, that spun out into a story which really is still being told today. One of the strangest things I recall was when the phone went one day, and Tony answered it and was talking, and he put the phone down looking a little bit shell-shocked, and said, you know, something amazing has just happened, or we're being wound up absolutely royally. But that was Paul McCartney. He wants to go back on the road. This was just after he played the surprise gigs turning up at universities, and he wants PR for it, and he's coming to the office 2:00 tomorrow to talk about it. And come 2:00, there was a knock on the door, and I think one of the girls there answered it, and there was Paul McCartney, an ex-Beatle, the man who'd broken up the Beatles. I mean, he wasn't everybody's favourite person then by any means, standing there with Linda, and obviously as nervous and as unsure of his situation as we were. And you know, he came in and sat down and had a cup of tea and told us about his plans, made arrangements for me to interview him and interview Denny Lane and the rest of the band he was putting together. And so I ended up almost by default writing a Paul McCartney tour programme. And the 6 months or so that we worked with McCartney was just magic, strange stuff. And Tony has a very strict ethos that today's headlines were tomorrow's chip paper, you know, so we kept the cuttings because those went off to the managers with the invoices, but it was all about, okay, you know, we've got that interview in the book, what's the next one we're setting up?